Welcome to the Carl Jackson Show, your daily dose of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. A lot is going on, guys. The world is going absolutely crazy. Man, I believe there's spiritual and practical implications to that. But right now, we'll speak of the practical. So I'll give you some of the latest that's happening with this Israel and Iran war, or Iran attacking Israel. And I'll let you know what Biden has to say about that as well. Also, what Trump predicted a couple of years ago, which, quite frankly, anyone with common sense would have predicted, with Joe Biden being in office, and all of the dictators around the world that seem to be making moves with Joe Biden in office. And also, what I'm going to do in this podcast, as well as bring you the latest news on that, is I'm going to make the case against RINOs. I was in for Mike Gallagher on Friday morning, and this was the show that I did. It got a lot of great response. I want to share this information with you because I believe, I understand that in the larger scheme of things, for those of us that are believers, America is not even in the Bible, right? But I do believe that we have a responsibility as Americans. I mean, we were blessed with the greatest country that God has ever given man. I think we have a duty to protect it and to preserve it, or to restore it, perhaps, is a better word, given the fact that we are living in what is a post-constitutional society. Also, Trump goes to court today, which is insane. It's like, I honestly haven't even paid attention to a lot of or kept up to date with a lot of these court cases, simply because I understand that Trump is being persecuted. But they may, what the left is attempting to do is stir or steer, I should say, people away from former President Donald Trump during the election. And will it work or not? I simply do not know. I believe the worse that Biden is, and the worse that his poll numbers sink, and the more that minority groups defect from him, if indeed the polls are accurate, and if they continue people continue to move away from him, Biden could be in trouble. I'm not going to say that he's going to lose. I am not going to predict. I've been horrible at this crap. So I'm not even going to try to predict it. All I'm going to say is make sure you get out and vote. Make sure that you bring a friend. Make sure that you pay attention to what's going on locally. So let me just bring you some of the news as of, some of the news as of last night, at least with the way that Biden is, at least the way that Biden is handling things. And then they have another stabbing in Sydney, Australia. Man, the world is just getting crazy. Oh, by the way, welcome to your daily dose of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. Please follow me on all things social media at The Carl Jackson Show, X, Instagram, Facebook, True Social Getter, wherever I am on social media, The Carl Jackson Show. And please subscribe to the podcast wherever you go to get your podcast. We're on Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube, and Rumble. If you're on YouTube and Rumble, guys, would you do me a favor and please review the podcast, and also like, share it, subscribe, obviously. We would certainly appreciate that. The Carl Jackson Show, wherever you go to get your podcast. All right, so this was as of yesterday. This is after Iran attacked Israel over the weekend. I mean, you had about 300 missiles and drones shot at Israel, but this is from the Wall Street Journal. So let me just give you, this was as of last night, about 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Biden urges caution as Israel weighs response to Iran. Guys, understand the predicament that we find ourselves in. We have probably the weakest president besides Barack Obama that I've seen, certainly in my lifetime. I mean, Biden is absolutely weak. He pretends and acts like he's a tough guy. He pretends as if he understands foreign policy, and he doesn't. Even when he was in his right mind, he didn't understand foreign policy. Now that he is a dementia patient inside of the White House, you have all of these people around him that are completely ignorant, whether it's Jake Sullivan, whether it's Anthony Blinken. All of these guys don't understand foreign policy. All they know is milking the system, making money, and just being lefties. That's all they know how to do. But they don't understand the world as it exists. All they know is that they've gone to woke institutions. They work for woke corporations. They work under a woke administration. And all they know is that America bad. the rest of the countries around the world is good. But I did an interview earlier with Pastor Erwin Lutzer, pastor emeritus of the Moody Bible Church. You're going to have to stay tuned for that, because we talk about, the church and socialism and cultural Marxism, things that the church should be aware of, but have been have been sleeping on. But this is all the left knows. I mean, the left will never compare America to other places around the world, because when you compare America to places in the Middle East, for instance, with the exception being Israel, America looks like a fabulous place to live, and the left cannot have that narrative. But the world is a horrible place. And it's getting worse, and that includes the United States. But United States is still a beacon of hope. That's why we see so many people flooding the United States of America. So here's just a short summary from the Wall Street Journal. Biden urged Israel to use caution in any response to Iran's unprecedented attack, and pressed allies Sunday for a united diplomatic front in a bid to stop the hostilities from spiraling into open warfare that could engulf the Middle East and entangle the U.S. Now, why is this a stupid response from Biden? It shows you that the guy is so politically desperate, or at least his administration and his party are. Listen, they're going after the radicals and their base. This is the dumbest decision I think I've ever seen. They're so afraid of losing Michigan and I believe Minnesota, maybe. That they're going after the radical evil elements of their base. They're going after the pro-Hamas crowd, right? The terrorist crowd, the terrorist supporters. That's their base. That's who they're going after, not the people not the independents that are going to decide elections, or not the true base of people that they need where that'll help them get past the finish line. The Democrat Party, that is. They're going after the radicals, because they believe that everybody else is dumb enough in the Democrat Party to vote for them, that they've got that vote wrapped up. So they're going for the radicals, because if they don't win the swing states, if they lose a couple of those swing states, it's lights out for Joe Biden. So it's absolutely insane to me. And he's willing to set the world on fire as a result. I mean, we've had Afghanistan, that Afghanistan debacle. We've had Russia, Ukraine, Russia sitting on the border of Ukraine for months and months and months on end. Joe Biden and NATO says nothing about it. I mean, virtually anyway. Absolutely insane. You have China that is. China that is looking to, go after Taiwan. Our relationship with Saudi Arabia has grown cold. I mean, it's just absolutely insane where we stand. You have Mexico telling us what we're going to do. You have places like Brazil that have been turned over to a socialist dictator now. I mean, this is insane. All of these things have happened over or under Joe Biden's watch. And honestly, they're going to continue to get worse because of responses like this. Everyone knows that Joe Biden is weak and he's feckless. And Carl, no, are you saying that America should be involved in everyone else's affairs? No, but America has a lot of pull when it comes to our money and our political might when it comes to our allies. So people don't want to mess with us, but they realize that Joe Biden or at least his administration buys into all of this wokeness and this cultural Marxism is all it is. And so they're going to take advantage of that. They're going to take advantage of this weakling. So I suspect that things are going to get worse in this economy. Or I'm sorry. Well, the economy is going to get worse, but around the world before it gets better. And I'm afraid that there may be a shuffling of allies. I think this thing could seriously get out of control, because why wouldn't you, if you're one of these dictatorial regimes around the world, why wouldn't you take advantage of a Joe Biden in the White House when you know he's weak? The guy has opened up our borders and said, come one, come all. And we are discovering terrorists that have come inside of our border. I mean, this is just lunacy. And don't think the whole world isn't watching. Of course they are. They want to bring us down to size. All right. So this article goes on the Wall Street Journal. The race to de-escalate tensions underscored the intense new phase that Iran and Israel's long simmering conflict had entered after Tehran launched what military analysts said was one of the largest combined aerial attacks in recent history. They shot more than 300 drones and missiles into Israel. U.S. and Western officials anticipate that Israel will quickly respond to Iran's attack as soon as Monday. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But again, you have Biden already pandering, saying, "Listen, Biden urged Israel to use caution." Really? Why don't you urge Iran to use caution? Oh, my bad. Because he's invested in Iran. All of the sanctions relief, all of the billions and billions, tens of billions of dollars that Iran has to play with, that they didn't have to play with under former President Donald Trump, thanks to this fool. Remember, it was Barack Obama that sent Iran, the mullahs of Iran, billions of dollars? I can't remember. Lots of money on a pallet, right? And all they do is use that money to enrich themselves and then to advance terrorism around the globe using their proxies, whether it's Hezbollah, whether it's Hamas, so on, etc. We're paying, honestly, when you think about it, I don't think I'm being hyperbolic to say this. Gabe, you tell me if I'm being crazy to say this, but you have to say that it is a result of Biden's policies, or Biden is basically, he financed the attack. And when you think about it, he financed the attack against Israel. I mean, they only have money because of us. This is insane. They were being crippled with all of the sanctions. U.S. and Western officials anticipate, back into the column from Wall Street Journal, will quickly respond to Iran's attacks as soon as Monday. But the officials said they hope both countries could come away with a sense of victory, giving them an off-ramp that would limit escalatory moves. All right, that's impossible. That's impossible because Iran views the United States as the great Satan and Israel as the little Satan. All right, you're never going to beat that. You're never going to beat that type of ideology, right? The only thing that you can do is kill these terrorists when their heads pop up. That's it. You know what I'm saying? You remember that game? You remember that game in the arcades, Gabe, where the heads will pop up and you would have to boom, 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 hit that thing. I forget what it was called, but anyway, that's what you're going to have to do with terrorists. You can't compromise with these people. You can't negotiate with these people. The only thing that you should negotiate when it comes to terrorists is what size bullet you're going to use, missile, whatever. That's the only thing worth negotiating. Israel benefited from an air defense operation, according to Wall Street Journal, with the U.S., the UK, France, and even Arab neighbors such as Saudi Arabia and Jordan that thwarted 99% of Iran's missiles and drones, said officials from countries involved. U.S. officials also estimated that about 50% of Iran's ballistic missiles failed to launch or crash during flight before reaching their target or getting intercepted. So that is good news. The bad news is, again, they had them, and now you have all of these people having to get involved and spreading themselves thin. You've got the Russia-Ukraine war. Now you've got us, right? And weaponry, I believe we probably helped pay for. Perhaps unintentionally so. I don't know, quite frankly, when it comes to the Biden administration. The UK, France, and Arab nations that are concerned. Saudi Arabia, that's concerned with these. I mean, concerned with the Gazans, if you will. The article goes on. The limited damage lent momentum to Western efforts to persuade Israel to hold off on a retaliatory strike. The guys that are leading these other countries, how do I say this? A bunch of metrosexuals that are destroying the world because they don't understand that somebody wants to be in charge. China wants to be in charge, right? So China is going to let us all duke it out, and they'll try to take over the world. That's what they want to do. Biden on Sunday convened leaders from the group of 7 nations who said they would consider new sanctions on Iran. The United Nations Security Council held an emergency meeting Sunday to discuss the attack. In a call Saturday evening with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Biden said the Israelis should now proceed with caution after their joint operation to thwart Iran's attack had been a success. I think the president had a discussion about trying to slow things down, think through things given what we just went through. Now, he can't think, so who's thinking for him? All right. Said a senior administration official who added the call happened during a period of heightened emotion, quote unquote. All Biden is concerned about is reelection and appeasing the radical leftist base, the pro-Hamas base in places like Michigan and Minnesota. Absolutely insane. It was a very useful call, the official said, just to kind of talk through where we are and next steps, and nobody wants to run up the escalation ladder here, close quote. Basically, Biden doesn't want to look like the feckless leader that he is heading into the election. But the problem is, as the world spirals out of control, he looks like the feckless leader that he is. It's crazy. Israel War Cabinet met Sunday without releasing a public statement about how it would respond. So again, we'll have to wait and see. The world is against Iran, said Israeli War Cabinet member Benny Gantz, who should never came to the U.S. to stab Netanyahu in the back. This is a strategic achievement that we must leverage for Israel's security, quote unquote. Anyway, I could go on, but needless to say, the world is spiraling out of control. And that's just the practical side. That isn't the spiritual side. We're going to try to get someone on this week. I know they're going to be extremely busy, but I mean, it's not stopping. Iran's IRGC, I'm sorry, has seized an Israeli cargo ship in the Persian Gulf. It's not going to stop. All right. These people are going to try to take over. They see their opportunity with Joe Biden in the White House. They see the fecklessness from NATO, and they're going to try to do what they can to seize power while they can. So expect things to get worse leading up through November and all the way up through January. And if Biden wins this election, I don't know. Start praying for the return of Jesus immediately. We should be praying for that now, but you know what I'm saying. All right. So this from National Review: Iranian special forces seized a container ship near the Strait of Hormuz, a key shipping lane to the Persian Gulf. Man, Navy special forces from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps used a helicopter to board and seize a container ship. The move could escalate tensions in a region reeling from the war in Gaza and a recent strike suspected to have been carried out by Israel. Actually, carried out by Israel that killed senior Iranian military officials. You know what? Now that's NBC. Honestly, again, this is just the world looking at Biden. The world's dictators looking at Biden, seeing he's weak, and they want to take advantage of it. Chuck Schumer voices support for Israel just after blocking aid to Israel. And by the way, right now you have, with the escalation of Iran attacking Israel, you have the House and everyone in Congress in Washington. All right, now we've got to get all this help for Russia, Ukraine. No, you don't. You can still chop up these bills. You can send aid to Israel. You don't need to send aid to Ukraine at this point, but it is probably likely that it's going to happen because most people in Washington, D.C. are absolute, complete and utter cowards. So I just wanted to give you a quick update on that. Actually, let's do this. Let's go ahead and listen to some video. This is President Trump a couple of years ago predicting that Biden's weakness was going to lead us into World War III. And I think he's absolutely right about this. And frankly, everyone that has been saying that, including myself, because all you have to do is understand that evil exists, that dictators around the world exist, and they want to prop themselves up and they want to watch America fall. That's all you need to know. The world wants to see America fall, and some other dictator wants to rise up and be number one. That's human nature. It's evil. Human nature is evil in general, and that's what it is. Let's go ahead and roll that video, por favor, Gabe, of President Trump, if you don't mind.
Through weakness and incompetence, Joe Biden has brought us to the brink of World War III. We're at the brink of World War III, just in case anybody doesn't know it. As president, I will bring back peace through strength. Peace through strength would have never happened. If I was president, there would not have been a war with Russia in Ukraine. Zero chance. And Lindsay would be happy with that. That's better than any alternative. Wouldn't have happened. And I will say this, even now, despite tremendous loss of lives and destruction of much of that country, I would have a peace deal negotiated within 24 hours. You could make a peace deal. You could make a deal for both right now, 24 hours. That deal could be done. That deal is waiting to be done, but there's nobody to do it. To protect Americans from the threat of hypersonic missiles and nuclear weapons, I will build state-of-the-art, next-generation missile defense shields. And just as I rebuilt our military. We totally rebuilt our military. Unfortunately, we gave $85 billion of it to the Taliban. How was that? Was that a good deal? We took the military out first, and we left Bagram. How about leaving Bagram? One of, I think, the biggest Air Force base in the world. We left Bagram. And you know who's occupying Bagram right now? China. And I didn't care about Bagram from Afghanistan. It's 1 hour away from where China makes its nuclear weapons. And we left. We gave it to them. We should have never left that. You agree with that? You agree with that? Everybody who's intelligent agrees. We should have kept it. We left. By the dark of night, we left the lights on, and we left the dogs behind, you know? The dog lovers are saying, what happened to the dogs? We had a lot of dogs. We left the dogs behind. They don't like to say that, but that's what happened. But we left, and I don't think the Taliban's too good with dogs, right? I don't think they have that loving feeling for dogs. But I'll build the shield, and the workers and the service members of your state will be at the heart of that action. You'll be building it, and you'll be manufacturing it, and you'll be doing a lot, because a lot gets done in your state, and a lot gets done in your state because of me and because of these gentlemen coming to me and say, can we do it in South Carolina? And I'd say yes every time, right, Henry? Right. I'd say yes every time.
All right. Oh man, we're in dangerous times. We're in dangerous times. I'll have more on this, tomorrow. But I do want to move on from this. Before I do want to remind you that this show is supported by sponsors, and without our sponsors, it is impossible. And please follow me on all things social media. But let me talk to you about one of our sponsors, our newest sponsor. Wealth protection research. At the very heart of our democracy lies a principle that we hold sacred. It is free speech. It's the cornerstone that supports every freedom that we cherish. Yet in today's digital age, discussions about our wealth, our rights, and our future are being silenced or overshadowed in mainstream narratives, leaving many feeling voiceless in conversations crucial to our financial independence and security. This is where Wealth Protection Research steps in, armed with a mission that's never been more critical. Wealth Protection Research is not a financial advisory firm. They are defenders of free speech, committed to giving a voice to the silence. Wealth Protection Research tirelessly seeks out financial experts. These are the voices that challenge prevailing narratives, especially as we navigate the uncertainties of the 2024 election. Wealth Protection Research has created a 2024 Election Wealth Protection Report. This free report highlights the 3 best ideas for protecting and growing your money heading into the 2024 election. And God knows we need it with Biden inflation. My words, all right? It contains ideas the mainstream media won't touch, and listeners can get it completely free. All you have to do is text the word IDEAS, IDEAS, to 76626 to claim your free copy. If you believe in the sanctity of free speech and the importance of financial freedom, then act now. Text IDEAS, IDEAS, to 76626 to claim your free copy of this 2024 Election Protection Report. It's time to widen the scope of what we're told, to hear the ideas the establishment does not think you can handle, and to take control of our financial destinies. Text IDEAS, IDEAS, to 76626, again, to claim your free copy. All right, now, I'm going to make a case here. This is a case that I made on Gallagher on Friday, and I want to make it to my podcast audience. I ran across a column written by a gentleman by the name of Matt Mayer. Matt Mayer has since, given me a shout out, if you will, on X. He ran for governor of Ohio. Unfortunately, he didn't win. And guys, I just want to bring things back. We were talking about foreign policy briefly. Again, I'll get back into that tomorrow, but I want to bring things back to the United States of America. I will touch on the latest with the, I guess Trump is going to court today, as a matter of fact, over this Alvin Bragg nonsense. And I just want to be loud and clear. I know everybody says this is the weakest case. You have Alvin Bragg that is literally trying to turn a misdemeanor into X amount of felonies, as Andrew McCarthy stated. I forget how many felonies, but he's making a misdemeanor, what would be a misdemeanor if Trump was indeed guilty of it, into turning it into several felonies. and people that could commit felonious crimes, violent crimes in the state of New York or in New York City. He's turning those into misdemeanors so that those people can be released immediately and beat your grandmother upside the head. This is Alvin Bragg. And a lot of people are saying, oh, man, this case probably isn't going to go anywhere, likely isn't going to go anywhere. This is the worst case of all. Guys, they're in New York City, and this is part of the election campaign. I have no confidence that Trump won't be convicted, even in such a stupid, silly, senseless case, simply because it is in New York City. And I'm doubtful that he can get the jury pool that he needs to make sure that he walks free of this particular crime. I am hopeful, and we should be prayerful. All right, so let me get to this, because if you want to save America, you know, I oftentimes, and you guys know me, I think I call balls and strikes, whether it's with the left or the right. But I think part of the main reason that America is in the predicament that it is in, and that is that we're in a post-constitutional, we're in a post-Judeo-Christian society, isn't necessarily because of the left, although obviously the left has been assaulting us and taking over our major institutions to brainwash our children, whether it's college campuses, you know, and other forms of academia, whether it's entertainment, even churches. And we've kind of, you know, sat back and like, oh, woe is me. But I gotta tell you, the reason why America is in such decline, I think, largely isn't necessarily because of the left, but frankly, because of the conservative movement and or Republicans and the church. So I ran across this article because sometimes you're sitting there and, you know, it's the same stuff all the time. We all get all the same news, right? And sometimes you're like, how can I bring a different take to this? And it's really hard to do, to be frank. Or how can I just do something that's just either going to convict or inspire or just I don't know, motivate the movement to do something different, to fight for their freedom. And I came across this column last week. Why can't Deep Red Ohio accomplish anything for conservatives? And you guys are saying, like, Carl, all right, we've got the Middle East thing brewing. We've got this Trump trial, you know, criminal case, first time a president could be found guilty of a criminal charge or whatever. And you're talking about Ohio. Yes, I'll tell you why I want to talk about Ohio. I want to talk about Ohio because it's representative or illustrative of what's happened to America. See, for the longest period of time, I thought that Ohio was a blue state trending red. But I come to find out after reading this column, because I was totally oblivious to it, and I've got family members in Ohio, and everything that I've heard in the past is the reason why Ohio, it's so hard to get conservatives in Ohio or to establish or implement conservative principles, legislation, policy in Ohio, is because it's basically like a purple state that's trending red because of, you know, major centers or major cultural centers, whether it be Columbus, I forget the other, maybe Cincinnati, I don't know, but or Cleveland, Columbus and Cleveland. I think those are the two that I hear the most, where there's so many liberals there. But and then I came across this article, and I just want to break this down, and I want to make the case against RINOs. Let me just say this loud and clear, because I know that I'll catch flack for this, but I don't care. I want to save America, I'm not fond. I'm not fond of some of the choices that are popping up for President Trump as a VP pick. I'm not a fan of Tim Scott. Listen, I think Tim Scott, I'm sure he's a nice and decent guy, but he's pretty moderate. In my opinion, he's basically the Black Mike Pence. And I don't mean that in a racial way. I mean that in his mannerisms, and also mean that in his policies. I mean, this was a guy that his solution to racial problems with policing, first off, he bought into the narrative, and then he wanted to offer a federal solution. And I'm like, nah, I don't want to nationalize police force, bro. Leave that to local communities. I do not want to nationalize police force. And that was one of Tim Scott's ideas, basically. No, now that's not what he said, but essentially that's what his policies, would have led to. And so, no, I don't want that. I don't want a Tim Scott. I don't want a Kristi Noem. I don't want a Governor Kristi Noem who pretended like, she kept her state open when it was the legislature that forced her to keep her state open during the COVID lockdowns. And then she tries to take the credit for it. And she was the one. And I was wrong about this. I thought she was trying to do something savvy at the time. Found out, no, she was just a coward when it came to the issue of trans in her state before the legislature shot that down too. And then I went and I looked at her voting record before she became governor, and the chick was basically a Democrat. So no, I don't want them as VP because Trump, in my opinion, listen, guys, this is just the way reality works. In 6 months to a year, Lord willing, after Trump gets elected, what are Republicans going to start doing? They're going to start running for office again. And just so that you understand, there's only, I don't know, a handful of people in Washington, D.C., whether it's the House or the Senate, that are actually conservative. So the RINOs are going to choose to save their jobs rather than save the country. That's what you have to understand. That's why I don't want a RINO in the VP slot. All right. Now, let me make this case. The case against RINOs, I'm going to compare, and I got to pull this up. I'm going to compare Governor DeSantis to, and I honestly need to refresh it because he's done so much more, to Governor Mike DeWine in Ohio. I want to read something to you. Again, this was from Matt Mayer. He ran for governor of Ohio and unfortunately lost. He starts his column off by, he wrote a column at the Federalist, and he says, for 15 years, Republicans have controlled Ohio's legislature. Oh, okay. With supermajorities in both the Ohio House and the state Senate. So 15 years, all right? Heading on 2 decades, Republicans have controlled Ohio's legislature with super majorities in both the Ohio House and the state Senate. I did not know that. Because they were a purple state for so long, I assumed that they were a barely, they didn't have a super majority. They had a couple seats. They were a couple of seats in the majority. That's what I assumed. So for 8 years, he said John Kasich, remember John Kasich, served as governor, followed by the Gang of 14 moderate Mike DeWine. That's who's in now for the last 5 years. And Mike DeWine, from what I understand anyway, is a Christian. And I think this is an indictment on conservatism and Christianity, because this is straight up weakness, what we've seen in Ohio. He says of the 21 states with Republican trifectas, the Republicans' rule over Ohio is the 11th strongest. The 11th strongest. 21 states that we have a trifecta. Ohio is the 11th strongest with 73.23% measured by percentage of legislative control. He talks about, as a point of a comparison, the strength of Republican trifectas in Florida and Texas are ranked 12th and 19th. So Ohio is a more red state than Florida and Texas, but you would never know it. So don't ever let anyone say, oh, it's because of Columbus or it's because of Cleveland. No, it's because you've got a bunch of RINOs there, and you've got to wake up and you got to kick these fools out. The writer writes, despite governing with smaller majorities, those other states accomplished far more than Ohio policymakers. If you didn't know better, you'd swear Ohio is a deep blue state like Illinois and New York, run by leftists, instead of, listen to this, an 8+ Donald Trump red state. Ohio GOP have an abysmal record, he says, when it comes to creating private sector jobs. He talks about from 1990 to 2024, Ohio's private sector has only grown by 17.5%. So from 34 years, 1990 to 2024, Ohio's private sector, private jobs have only grown by 17.5%, with the average among other pro-union states as 32%. So if you were to say, all right, well, Ohio has a lot of unions, that's probably the reason why. No, other union states have grown at, on average, 32%. Right to work states like Florida, like the one that I live in, have grown at even higher rates at 72%. Now, this was as of last week. Actually, DeSantis did something else over the weekend. I don't even remember. I want to give you a point of reference. This is why I get so frustrated with Republicans still to this day. that will try to bash DeSantis. DeSantis is the best Republican that I've seen in frankly in my lifetime. We're paying attention to politics. If this guy gets in office ever as president, I'm not sure that he will, because I really don't believe the conservative movement is conservative enough. I think there's a bunch of frauds in the conservative movement. I don't think the Republican Party is a conservative party. This guy will be the best president since Coolidge, and I think it's easy, and it's based on evidence. You can't tell me otherwise. You can get all emotional. For me, I like Trump, I like DeSantis, but I think they're both tools, and I think DeSantis, frankly, would be a better tool in the future, even than Trump. I think Trump gives us everything that we need in order, the style that we need to fight the cultural left, the cultural Marxists, and to fight back the left. But I think DeSantis is the tacticianer that we need. So I hope he gets it together. Again, I don't know if he could ever be elected, to be honest with you, because I just think that most Republicans are cowards. And I think they like to be emotionally appeased rather than really fight. I think most Republicans don't really want a fight. I think they'd rather just bow down, grab the ankles and let the left do what they want to do. But here's this. DeSantis signed slew of new laws cracking down on sex crimes, protects kids from sex predators. All right, that was just last week. And I'm going to get back to this Ohio story. I just want to give you a point of reference, because you've got this weakling Mike DeWine in Ohio. Before that, you had the weakling John Kasich. And for the longest, again, I thought it was a purple or blue state. No, it's just weak behind Republicans that are destroying the country. And I'm going to show you how Democrats are taking advantage of that. DeSantis to launch effort raising money for Trump's campaign. For all of you that were like, oh, DeSantis is a traitor, you idiots. DeSantis signs bill to further crack down on retail theft, porch piracy, and inciting looting on social media. Guys, this is within the last couple of weeks. Florida is off the board. DeSantis highlights state's transition from swing state to GOP stronghold. All right. Disney World moves forward with largest expansion in history after backing out a fight with DeSantis. So remember all of the kooks, even on the right, that were saying, oh, this is such a stupid program. So stupid for DeSantis to take on Disney. What is he doing? Really? So Disney, the corporatists, should have been getting, special treatment above all other corporations in the entire state. This was a guy that was a proven fighter. Where else was Disney going to go? That's why they were fighting so hard. They only have two places to go where they don't have to worry about weather. That is communist California or the state of Florida. All right. So now they backed out of the fight, and they've announced their largest expansion ever in the state of Florida. For all of you guys pretending to be conservatives but really are not. DeSantis takes action against Biden's illegal program, flying illegal aliens across the U.S. And again, I don't even have time to look, but this was just in the last couple of weeks, guys. I mean, just to give you a point of reference. So now I want to go back to the RINOs in Ohio. So again, from 1990 through 2024, Ohio's private sector only grew by 17.5%. Other states, other red states, or actually other pro-union states, not even red states, grew at an average of 32%. Right-to-work states like mine, Florida, 72%. Other than in 2021, when some of the jobs temporarily lost from the pandemic came back, Ohio's private sector job growth has not reached six figures since 1997. And Republicans have had a stronghold for nearly 2 decades. Even worse, Ohio's private sector still has not returned to the peak of private sector employment, 4.8 million jobs in March of 2000, 24 years ago, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. And then you have the COVID lockdowns. The writer Matt Mayer writes, because the Dewine, John Husted administration shut down Ohio so severely during the pandemic, Ohio's private sector has only netted 33,000 jobs since 2019. The state of Ohio has only netted 33,600 jobs since 2019. Ohio's private sector post-pandemic is America's 38th best. So you have a Republican state with a Republican super majority, and they are 38th in creating jobs in the U.S. He says this lackluster growth is despite the work of the quote unquote best in the nation economic development entity, Jobs Ohio, it's called, which Kasich created in 2011 with little transparency on how it operates. He says the only measure of its success is private sector job growth, which has worsened the longer Jobs Ohio has been in business. All right, so you've got RINO Republicans that have implemented horrible policy in the state of Ohio, and you've got a lot of people, I believe, probably in Ohio that think, oh, there's nothing we can do about it because we've got Columbus, we've got Cleveland. When no, you need to pick up your phone and call your state representative, your state house member, your state senate, your state senator, and say, man, what are you doing? Get on the ball. Pass this, pass that. That's all it is. This is involvement. You can turn your state is already red. You just have to get the politicians to act like it. He talks about, Matt Mayer does, bringing businesses in via subsidies and how that'll fail. He says the jury remains out on whether Ohio's now delayed deal with Intel, it cost them more than $2 billion, will actually pan out. He says that it's had other big projects that have been spectacular failures. They tried to bring in a cracker plant in eastern Ohio, and that went nowhere after investing $100 million in the projects. And then similarly, they invested in a Peloton plant for in western Ohio, and that went belly up before a single bike was built, he writes. Now, he compares Florida. All right, so remember, I told you that in Ohio, they had a net job growth of, 19,000 jobs or something like that over very small number. Now I don't see the number. Anyway, very small, fewer than 20,000 jobs, net jobs, right? Let me give you a point of reference. He gives you the point of comparison. Florida's private sector has added 3.4 million jobs, more than Ohio since 1990. In 1990, Ohio's private sector was 91% of the size of Florida's private sector. All right. Because of Ohio's stagnant job growth and Florida's booming economy, Ohio's private sector is now just 55% the size of Florida's private sector. So you have a bunch of government jobs, union jobs. He says on balancing the budget. On tax policy, Republicans have passed an $86 billion two-year budget that will see state spending jump by 10%, but have only nibbled on lowering the state income tax. In 2013, the state budget in Ohio spent $27.9 billion to the 2025 state budget, and now Ohio's budget is $44.7 billion. So you talk about in 12 years, that is literally, that's like $17 billion. I mean, that's insane. State spending will have skyrocketed 60% in just 12 years, or roughly 5% per year, at a time in which population growth and inflation were very low. Now, here's part of the problem. See, this is what the left does. They create these policies, and then they scare us on their policies, and then we fall into their policies. So Medicaid now swallows, he says, 50% of the state spending following John Kasich's unilateral expansion under Obamacare that has seen enrollment explode by 800,000. So you might, I remembered this once I read this. John Kasich, we have to be compassionate, and I'm paraphrasing. We have to be compassionate, all these people that need Medicaid. No, just make the environments better so more people can get jobs and they can get benefits from their jobs, the jobs that offer them, or allow, insurance companies to compete so that people that are small business owners like myself could afford to go out and get healthcare insurance or medical insurance. I mean, it's really asinine, but this is what happens when you get, and I don't like using the term RINOs because sadly, this is actually a Republican issue. It's a Republican problem. We just have too many weak Republicans that are basically Democrats that don't want to fight over policy, but they still want to claim the brand Republican or conservative. So you got 800,000 people that have enrolled in Obamacare since 2013. That's 66% the size of Ohio's private sector. What? Due to Medicaid expansion, Republicans are now dependent on the state income tax to fund spending, so they can't cut the state tax. To make matters worse, because Republicans have failed to wrestle with local government reform, local property taxes in Ohio have jumped by the sixth highest rate in America. Over the last year, property taxes were larger than the minimal reductions in the state income tax. That is unbelievable. After a decade of tepid population growth of just 2%, Ohio is now losing citizens as tens of thousands are voting with their feet by heading to states where there's more job opportunities and prosperity. Many Ohio counties have been hollowed out. So some of these small towns have been hollowed out due to the lack of jobs. Ohioans who aren't leaving Ohio or dying from fentanyl, because that is a major problem there, are moving from rural counties to the greater Cincinnati and Columbus area counties, where job prospects are slightly better, but just slightly better. Now, when it comes to cultural issues, this is what started to happen too. Not only was Kasich week and Dewine week on Obamacare and all this kind of stuff, now even on cultural issues, he says the GOP in Ohio have failed to stop the left from winning again and again. So you remember, you have a 73.23% super majority legislature of Republicans in Ohio, and yet everything the left talks about brings in to dumb down the culture and to make Ohio go further left, Republicans accept. So from the passage of gambling during the Kasich years, who then expanded it even more to legalizing marijuana under the DeWine administration, Ohio, he said, is becoming America's vice capital. Jobs Ohio subsidy largesse is funded by alcohol sales. So perversely, the more Ohioans get drunk, the better. Wow. Due to the lack of strategic leadership from the DeWine, man, that is crazy. The subsidy for Jobs Ohio is funded by alcohol, not even lotto, but by alcohol. Due to the lack of strategic leadership from the DeWine administration, one of the nation's most extreme pro-abortion laws was embedded into the Ohio Constitution last year. How do you have this passed with a super majority like that? Well, obviously the wording can be the wording is very deceptive in these amendments, but you should have had DeWine and the state legislatures out. Just banging the drums on this. Only after watching state after state pass laws to counter the radical transgender agenda did Republicans finally act to protect minors from being surgically butchered and drugged, and to protect girls from competing against boys. So if there's no difference between Democrats and Republicans when it comes to these cultural issues, then why should I vote Democrat? Why should I vote Republican? You see, this is the problem. This guy ran on a bold colors agenda, Matt Mayer. Unfortunately, he didn't win. But let me tell you something, Ohioans, you can win. You can force your state that is already red to act like they're red. All right. Make sure you call your state house, your state representatives, do all of those things. It is so necessary. Guys, I want to remind you about MyPillow. Right now, Mike Lindell and MyPillow no longer have the support that they used to have in these box stores, thanks to council culture. All right. So they want to pass savings directly on to you. They have a $25 extravaganza happening right now. Mike started MyPillow. It was just one product, but now, with the help of his dedicated employees, they now have hundreds of products. Some you probably don't even know about, so you got to go to mypillow.com to check them out. To get the word out, I'm going to invite you, my listeners, to check out their $25 extravaganza. Actually, I'm going to do some shopping myself. 2-pack multi-use MyPillows, just $25. MyPillow sandals are just $25. Their 6-pack of towel sets are just $25. Brand new 4-pack dish towels, just $25. For the first time ever, the premium MyPillows with all new Giza fabric, just $25. Orders over $75 will receive free shipping as well. So this amazing offer won't last long. Go to mypillow.com and use promo code Carl, or give them a call, 800-858-0263. Again, that promo code is CARL. I don't spell it like the communists, all right? But anyway, listen, guys, I appreciate you tuning in to this edition of the Carl Jackson Show. If you have a Republican legislature, make sure, you know what I mean, call your state house, call your state representative, get to know them. I had a card of mine sitting around. I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't know who my state rep and all those kind of things were. I don't, until we get closer to the election. And I'm like, now I have the card. I'm going to make sure that I make the calls. We just have to do that. We have to let our voices be heard. Even if we don't always get the results that we want, we make sure that these fools know that we're out there and we're trying our best to hold them accountable. But Ohio should be a red state. Instead, they act like a blue state. You guys can turn that around, Ohio. Don't elect RINOs. Don't believe. I really believe moderates there convince you to vote for them. Maybe Democrats, maybe national media. Oh, it's a blue state. It's a purple state trending red. No, you've been a super majority state Republican for almost 2 decades. It's time for you to act like it, Ohio. Stop electing RINOs. You're not going to lose if you go further to the right. That narrative exists, but it isn't real. It's just perception. Until next time, don't grow weary doing good. God bless you.